Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet. In this session, we'll be discussing from the 18th verse of the 13th chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Viduras tad abhipretya dhritarashtram abhashata rajan nirgamyatam shighram pashyedam bhayamagatam. The meaning of this verse is, Mahatma Vidura knew all this and therefore he addressed Dhritarashtra saying, My dear king, please get out of here immediately. Do not delay. Just see how fear has overtaken you. So the purpose for Mahatma Vidura to visit the palace of Hastinapura was to actually instruct Dhritarashtra about his prime duty, spiritual duty, which he had completely neglected, becoming engrossed in securing his bodily comforts, ensuring that his sons will inherit the kingdom against their rightful claim, etc. So now Vidura has come specifically to instruct Dhritarashtra, and now he is addressing Dhritarashtra. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains the reason why Vidura is telling Dhritarashtra, get out of here immediately. Do not delay. It's urgent that he has to leave the palace. And one of the reasons he gives is because fear has overtaken you now. So, Srila Prabhupada explains this in the purport. Cruel death cares for no one, be he Dhritarashtra or even Maharaj Yudhishthira. Therefore, spiritual instruction, as was given to old Dhritarashtra, was equally applicable to younger Maharaj Yudhishthira. Dhritarashtra is the uncle of Maharaj Yudhishthira, his father's brother. So Dhritarashtra is old and Yudhishthira is younger than Dhritarashtra. But this instruction which Vidura is giving is equally applicable to both Dhritarashtra and Yudhishthira. Why? Because death is applicable to anyone who has taken birth in this material world. This is the instruction of the Bhagavad Gita. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityu dhruvam janma mritasya cha. One who has taken birth is sure to die, and one who dies without preparing for death to transfer himself to the spiritual world, such a person is sure to take birth after death. So this repetition of birth and death is the way of material existence, and it's applicable to everyone regardless of who the person is materially. So Srila Prabhupada says further, as a matter of fact, everyone in the royal palace, including the king and his brothers and mother, was raptly attending the lectures that were being given by Vidura. But it was known to Vidura that his instructions were especially meant for Dhritarashtra, who was too materialistic. In a sense, those who are spiritually inclined and are spiritually engaged in spiritual activities, they don't require the kind of alertness that Vidura is trying to bring in by his strong words. And we shall hear how Vidura is going to speak to Dhritarashtra very, very harshly, just to shake him up out of the slumber. Now, the important point here is Dhritarashtra had become too materialistic, and therefore he required such a dose of, as they say, bitter medicine. He required that. The word Rajan is especially addressed to Dhritarashtra significantly. Why is the word Rajan applicable to Dhritarashtra particularly? Is because Dhritarashtra was the eldest son of his father, and therefore, according to law, he was to be installed on the throne of Hastinapura. But because he was blind from birth, he was disqualified from his rightful claim. See how in the ancient times they were so conscious of exercising their claim based on their qualification. Not just because I am the eldest son, so I should ascend the throne, regardless of whether I am blind, I am unqualified. No, it's never like that. So he was disqualified because he was blind by birth. But he could not forget, Dhritarashtra could not forget the bereavement, and his disappointment was somewhat compensated after the death of his younger brother Pandu. Pandu died untimely when he was very young. So, Dhritarashtra was made the caretaker king because there was no one to ascend the throne after Pandu's death, because the children were all, his younger brother left behind him some minor children, and Dhritarashtra became the natural guardian of them. But at heart, he wanted to become the factual king and hand the kingdom over to his own sons headed by Duryodhana. With all these imperial ambitions, Dhritarashtra wanted to become a king, and he contrived all sorts of intrigues in consultation with his brother-in-law, Shakuni. Now, Shakuni, the brother-in-law of Dhritarashtra, that is Gandhari's brother, Dhritarashtra's wife's brother, he was very angry that his sister, Gandhari, the most beautiful princess of her time, she was married to a blind king. So Shakuni was very angry. Why my sister, who's so qualified, so beautiful, so chaste, so very good in all qualities, why is she being married to a blind person? So he decided to destroy the Kuru dynasty. To destroy the Kuru dynasty. So this was Shakuni's agenda. And when Dhritarashtra, he contrived all sorts of intrigues, Shakuni actually became very much instrumental in trying to, in Dhritarashtra's attempt at somehow trying to destroy the Pandavas. Because Shakuni's agenda was somehow the Kuru dynasty should be destroyed. But everything failed by the will of the Lord. Dhritarashtra was not successful. Shakuni was not successful. Everything failed by the will of the Lord. When the Lord protects somebody, nobody can destroy such a devotee protected by the Lord. And at the last stage, even after losing everything, men and money, Dhritarashtra wanted to remain as king, being the eldest uncle of Maharaj Yudhishthira. Maharaj Yudhishthira, as a matter of duty, maintained Dhritarashtra in royal honor. Dhritarashtra was not entitled to the royal honor because Yudhishthira Maharaj had ascended the throne, and before Yudhishthira Maharaj ascending the throne, Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana had given so much trouble to Yudhishthira. So Dhritarashtra was shamelessly accepting all the hospitality Yudhishthira was offering. Shamelessly. So this will be pointed out later on by Vidura. Dhritarashtra was happily passing away his numbered days in the illusion of being a king or the royal uncle of King Yudhishthira. See, just because Yudhishthira was very, very courteous, and he was upright in his dealings, he was straightforward in his dealings, he was ideal in his behavior and character, Dhritarashtra was misusing this kind treatment of Yudhishthira. Now Vidura, as a saint and as the duty-bound affectionate youngest brother of Dhritarashtra, wanted to awaken Dhritarashtra from his slumber of disease and old age. Now what is Dhritarashtra's condition? He had become old, so invalidity due to old age had set him. That will be described by Vidura later on. That means as the body ages, generally the senses become weaker and weaker and weaker. And internally the organs start failing. The digestion becomes poor. The liver doesn't function properly. The heart becomes weak. So many changes in the body, and that will be described later on. These are all changes which are natural consequence of the aging of the body, and nobody can prevent it. It's natural for everyone to experience this if they live beyond a certain stage of this body. When old age sets in, if somebody is still living, then in the old age, even though they may be happy that I am still living, but their body may not be in the best of conditions. So Dhritarashtra was facing the invalidity due to old age and also the disease that accompanies sometimes the aging of the body. Vidura therefore sarcastically addressed Dhritarashtra as the king, which he actually was not. Dhritarashtra was not the king. Then why is Vidura addressing him as the king? Rajan, the word says, Rajan nirgamyatam shigram. My dear king, please leave this place immediately. So it was a sarcastic address. Everyone is the servant of eternal time. You see, Kala reigns supreme in this material world because it is a representation of the Supreme Lord, Paramatma. Nobody can overcome Kala except a pure devotee who transcends the material conditions, the material modes, and even Kala. Only a pure devotee can transcend Kala. But those who are not taken to devotional service, they cannot transcend Kala. So therefore, no one can be king in this material world in real sense of the term. Nobody is like the controller. Everyone is controlled. So therefore, this situation which Dhritarashtra was in, Vidura had come to get him out of this situation, to help him save himself. That was Vidura's mission. I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.